Alright, so in today's video we're checking out the BETAFPV LiteRadio 4. And before we get to the video, I'm going to sort of have this little message here at the beginning for those of you that are just starting out in FPV or considering starting out in FPV. There's going to be a lot of opinions out there from experienced pilots on what you should or shouldn't buy. Obviously, it's based on their personal experience. When it comes to a radio, something that you're going to use to control your drone, it's a very subjective and personal choice to make. What works for someone may be absolutely terrible for you. So for these entry-level radios like the LiteRadio 4, and some people will mention some of the other ones out there like the Radiomaster Pocket or the recent T8L, price is going to be a big factor, but something you should consider is while something might be cheaper, doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Vice versa, just because it's more expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's better either. So it really comes down to what's going to work for you. So if you're not really sure if you want to spend the $50 on this and maybe you're kind of on the fence, try and find someone that has this radio and see if you like the feel of it and if it works for you or not, or you may want to go with something else. Basically the bottom line here I'm trying to say is if you can find someone that has a radio that they're willing to let you give a try, then I would highly recommend go with that before you just buy something blind. Of course, if you're able to buy this and return it, like say from Amazon, that's another route to go. You can always send it back in case you don't like it. Now, for this, in terms of this radio here as an entry-level beginner radio, it's basically an evolution of their series. So this is the LiteRadio 4. There was previously the LiteRadio, LiteRadio 2, LiteRadio 3. So again, we're many generations into this, and they've made a lot of improvements over the years. So if you see some videos from like 4 or 5 years ago on the original LiteRadio 1 and 2, some of those had a lot of issues with some sort of defective gimbals. I think they've solved all those problems. Like the most recent products in terms of the controllers are much better now. So just because you saw a video from 3 or 4 years ago that said that the LiteRadio 1 or 2 is bad, doesn't mean that this one is bad. So just keep that in mind as well. Now again, it comes in at $50. What you get in the box here, you get the controller, you get these little gimbal protectors, it looks like a USB A to USB-C cable. It's going to be good for charging and also connecting to your PC for simulators. And you get a user's guide. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in the user's guide. The LiteRadio 4 works pretty much the same way as the previous generations, the LiteRadio 1 and 2 and 3. You download a configurator. It's basically like an app for your PC, and then you can then connect to the radio and configure it. So basically you download that, you plug it into your PC with it off using the USB-C cable and the USB-C port here in the bottom, and then you just connect to the radio through the configurator, and then there you can adjust things like your power level. It goes from like 25 milliwatts to 100 milliwatts, your packet rate, telemetry ratio, those kinds of things. I will talk about the bind phrase in a second. You can do that, but you have to go through a different method. And again, I have previous videos on the LiteRadio series. I'm not going to cover everything in the manual. I would recommend going to those videos. I'll have a link in the description to my RC transmitter playlist, and then you can go there and take a look at the older videos. I'll link those also down in the video description. All right, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the radio itself. It is somewhat different from the previous 2 generations. Basically, I guess these little ends here that where you grab on is a little bit longer than on previous generations, and it's a little bit narrower on top. So this is more of the gamepad style, Xbox controller style ergonomics that I think most people are going to appreciate better than the previous generations. The gimbals are the same Hall sensor gimbals. They have continuously improved. I think these are even better now. I think this is a new generation. They're very, very smooth for a budget gimbal. On the front here, you've got your power button. Basically turn it on. You're going to short press and then long press. It's kind of like a DJI remote. So short press and then long press. See the lights. your 3 beeps, it turns on, and then here you get your light. It's kind of hard to see on the camera. It's supposed to be blue. It kind of comes out greenish on my camera. I think the white balance is a little bit off here, but it should be blue when it's on. And then you got your trims here, so you can change your trims here if you want. So in theory, you could use it for an airplane, but probably not the best choice for an airplane in my opinion. Just going to stick to drones for this one. On the bottom here is your USB-C port for charging the battery. The internal battery is 2,000 milliamp hours, and it has a runtime about 8 hours on a full charge. Got your bind button here and your setup button. On previous generations, those buttons were on the back here, and then this was like a bit taller, so there was more space. So basically this middle section was taller, and then these end sections were shorter, so a little bit different ergonomics. Got this is a metal like lanyard neck strap holder, so if you want to opt for the BETAFPV LiteRadio neck strap, you can grab one of these and stick this on here like so, and then you can hang the radio from your neck when you don't want to hold it. On the top, your switches are quite a bit different. So let's see, probably the best way to look at it is this way here. So this is the top of the radio here as you're holding it, as you're looking at it. So you have your SA over here on the left, or 2-position switch, and then the SB is a 3-position switch, and then your SC is a 3-position switch, and then your SD is a 2-position switch, and then you have your SE and your SF. These are momentary switches here. Now, I gotta say, these, at first, I was kind of like, didn't like the way these felt, but compared to previous generations, these switches are an improvement. That was one of the complaints on the older radios. The switches weren't that great in terms of feedback. These are pretty good. So it's very, very clear that which position, especially the 2-position switch here that you would use for arming, this is very clear as to which it is in, versus the previous generation had a latching switch here, which was sometimes a little hard to tell if you actually it actually took or not, or actually latched. But this one is pretty clear that what is going on. Now, in terms of binding this to your quad, it's basically it's an Express ELRS transmitter system. So on your drone, you're going to do the same Express ELRS binding procedure. Basically, you plug and unplug the drone 3 times. That will put the drone into binding mode, and then once that's in binding mode, you're going to turn on your radio, and then you're going to short press the bind button like this. Here's some beeps. It's beeping red. It's flashing red here and it's beeping. And then that'll go for about 8 seconds. You see it'll turn off. So the binding mode for the transmitter will be about 8 seconds. So you want to put the drone into binding mode first, and then hit the bind button on here, put this into the transmitter into binding mode, and then it should bind up. The other way you can bind is by putting your bind phrase into the radio. And for this is a new thing for this generation. There's a Wi-Fi mode that you can put this into. So there's actually a Bluetooth mode that you're going to put this radio into first. So that's another way you can connect this up to simulators. So the first way is through the USB-C port to your PC or Mac. Second way is Bluetooth mode. So the way you do that is you're going to press and hold the bind button down here. It's a little tricky to do. You're going to press and hold this here. So, and then you're going to turn it on by short pressing and long pressing the button. And then you see this light will be purple. So I'm not sure if that's coming out on camera. If it's purple, that means it's in Bluetooth mode. It'll show up as a, my PC just shows up as BETAFPV joystick, and then you can connect to it via Bluetooth, and you can also connect it to your iOS devices like your iPhones, your tablets, and also your Android devices as well via Bluetooth. If you have apps that you can connect via a Bluetooth joystick. And then once you're in this Bluetooth mode, to put it into Wi-Fi mode, you press the bind button again. Then the light turns green, and this means you're in Wi-Fi mode. And then this basically works the same way as most other Express ELRS transmitters. You're going to go to your, basically go to your device. In my case, I'm going to use an Android device and go turn on Wi-Fi. And you see here is Express ELRS. Just connect it there, and then you can see here it brings up your browser. And this is basically, as you can see here, shows you LiteRadio 4. Has the firmware version of the ExpressLRS that's on there. It's 3.5.3 in case you're wondering. But this is the same interface that you see on all ExpressLRS transmitters. They're using basically the standard here. And I'll go ahead and put it in my bind phrase. So there's my bind phrase, and then it converts this to these numbers. And then you just hit save and reboot. And that's it. So that's now my bind phrase is in this radio. I'll go ahead and let's get and turn it off and on again. And when I turn it on again with a drone that has my bind phrase already in the receiver, it should just automatically connect, and then I just can go and fly. So you can do the bind phrase. You just have to turn on the Wi-Fi mode and then connect it, through another device, and then put your bind phrase in that way. Yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of my coverage of the LiteRadio 4. I believe the ergonomics have improved, the gimbals have improved, the switches have improved. They're using ExpressLRS with the built-in Wi-Fi mode now, so you can connect and put your bind phrase in that way. So a lot of things are better. Of course, it still doesn't have OpenTX or HTX, so if you're one of those that are looking for a radio that has that, this doesn't support that at all and won't ever in the future. So obviously, if you're one of those that needs that, then you should look at some of this other model. And again, this is also limited to just 100 milliwatts. So for those of you that are needing to fly very, very far away, much more than 100 milliwatts can take you, then of course this model isn't going to be for you either. You're going to have to look at some other options. And again, I'll have a playlist down in the video description to my RC transmitter videos, and you can look at some of those and see if some of the other ones might meet your needs. But that'll do it for my coverage of the LiteRadio 4. A link will be in the description if you guys want to check it out, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.